Here's how I made this environment in Blender. So I started off by importing this road asset from BlenderKit, which is really useful. It's the road asset actually let you control the direction with curves. But yes, it's this asset, Nature Road. It's free, and I just imported it, and it lets you control the path of the road with curves. But I've already applied those modifiers, so I can't show you it. And it comes with this gradient texture that you can use to fade the edges in. And originally, the outside did not have this texture, so what I did is I went into edit mode, selected these outside faces, and assigned them to a new material, which I masked using an attribute. So if you see here, yes, group. Just type the exact name of the vertex group inside of the shader editor and use that as a mask for your mix shader, and it will replace the sides of the road with any texture you want. And then I just faded the sides out with this gradient texture. It already comes with the gradient texture, but I accidentally deleted it, so I had to remake it. Next, I made the environment, or the hills, up close. This is really simple. It's just a plane that I've scaled up, subdivided, and went into sculpt mode, and I just moved some parts up and some parts down. This is great for when you want more control of your landscape, but if you want to make large scale environments, you should use the ANT landscape, which I'll show later. Then for the textures, what I did is I just mixed together some different materials from BlenderKit, and it's really simple. It's just I put the texture setup into its own node group, and then just connected that to Principled BSDF node for each node group, and then just mix those together with attributes, which are just vertex colors. As you can see here, that some parts are white and some parts are black. That's basically just a mask. Basically, I have a dirt texture. I have a more rocky dirt texture with some like sticks and things, and then I have the dead grass texture, which I just mixed in with those attributes, and it creates this nice ground. As you can see, it's really simple. I didn't even use displacement. The textures are just flat, and you don't really notice it because it's so dark in the final product, but it works for this. Then what I did is I added a geometry node setup. What I did is I started with the base geometry, and I added points, and as you can see, there's points all over the geometry. Let me just join the geometry so you can see where the points are. But yeah, as you can see, there's just like points spread out, and I use those to instance some assets from BlenderKit. So as you can see here, I instanced two different assets, some grass and these tree stumps. The tree stumps were just photo scanned assets. Search up tree, and what I did is I took this asset, removed the bottom, decimated it, and filled in the top. That's really it. Just distribute points on faces, added instance on points, and then I use this align rotation to vector node. Basically just plug in the normal and you plug in the rotation, and you set this to Z, which just aligns it on the upward axis so that these tree stumps are like facing that way. As you can see, the stumps are sort of rotating to the plane that they're on, and they're not rotating all the way because I put in a map range node so that it's not too intense, because if it's too intense, then it looks a little bit strange in my opinion. So I just use a map range node to decrease the intensity of the rotation, and then I just plug that into the rotation of the instance on points. And as you can see, some of these guys are kind of floating, especially like those stumps, so I just added a set position node to move them downwards, and they are like sinking into the ground, but I think that's a cool effect, and It may be a little bit unrealistic, but I think it created a better result in the end. Next, for the grass, what I did is I basically did the same thing, just distribute points on faces, and then I instanced this grass collection. I just took this collection info, separate children, reset children, set it to original, and pick instance. You have to do separate children and pick instance if you want to get only one object from the collection, but basically this is what it looked like originally without any of these toggles on. But once I click separate children and pick instance, it only picks one from the collection, then reset children brings them down. If you have issues with the grass floating, just make sure their origins are set to their geometry, and that will make sure that they are instanced properly. Next, for the trees, it was really simple. I just took this tree asset from BlenderKit, removed the leaves, and just duplicated them a couple of times, just rotated them around and placed them throughout the scene to make them look good. Like that. And also, you may have noticed the roots in the ground, or the roots poking out of the ground. That's literally just the top of the tree that I duplicated and put under the ground, and as you can see, it creates this nice roots effect. And then lastly, for the mountain, what I did is I used ANT landscape. Just go into edit preferences and search up ANT landscape. Make sure there's periods between the letters. I think it's just an acronym. Then you just go into mesh, then click landscape, and it will add this into your scene. Basically, don't click any buttons. Otherwise, you can go into this panel and click create, and then you'll be able to adjust the settings from there, but you have to refresh it every time, and I like it more when it's responsive and just refreshes. But basically, you just want to set the subdivisions to whatever level you think is fine. I mean, 128 is not that bad. I mean, it's a little bit smooth, but if it's in the distance, you might not need to set your subdivisions higher, but personally I think 256 looks pretty good. Then what I did is I just increased the mesh size Y to make the mountain longer, and then I just mess with the settings. This is really just sort of like an artistic thing. Just adjust the settings until you think they look good. Really, it's pretty simple. Just random seed is a random value that changes the noise that drives the displacement of this texture that creates the mountain. Like, as long as you think that the displacement looks good and you don't need to adjust any of like settings like height or anything, then you really just need to change the random seed until you get something good. If you just want a quick preset, there's also these presets at the top. And when you think you have a good mountain generated, position it so that it looks nice in the scene. So the textures are all from BlenderKit, but basically I just used the weight from slope function to create this slope mask, which I use to drive the appearance of the textures. And basically, you just click weight from slope, and you go into weight paint mode, and you'll get this slope group. If you want to adjust it, you can just click weights, and then go levels, and this will allow you to alter what the slope looks like. Basically, the red areas are where your new texture is going to be revealed, and the blue areas are where the original texture will stay. And what you want to do is create a good contrast. So just decrease the offset, but then increase the gain, and then that will give you a good contrast to create the masking of the textures off of. You just don't want it to be too sharp. And then what I did is I just used these attributes to mask a couple of textures. So the first thing I did was I took this like pretty complicated texture, procedural texture from BlenderKit. I didn't adjust any of these settings, I mean, except for this one noise texture, which seemed to be driving this weird effect that was kind of broken. I just muted this mix color node, and it removed it. Then I used a mix shader driven by the slope mask to add in some of this other texture from BlenderKit, which is like moss and rocks, and then I added in another slope mask. And what I did is I just adjusted the levels so that the slope was slightly expanded, and then I just used a subtract node to make sure that I wasn't replacing too much of the old texture, and then just use a color ramp to boost those values back. And then that added in this extra moss texture, which is just a little bit more green. You can see it the most here. It's like this lime green moss texture, and I just mixed all those three textures together. Very simple setup. Just use the slope attribute and use that as a mask to create this rocky mountain texture. Lastly, I did the skull and some volumes, so I just added in this skull asset from BlenderKit again, and I just positioned it in the center of this mountain. I just thought it looked cool, nothing really special. It's literally just positioned in the center of the mountain. And then what I did is I added the volumes. So what I used is I used 2 smoke cards from Production Crate. Basically it's just this animated noise texture. You can't see it very well in Eevee, but in Cycles it's more visible. But it's basically just this animated noise texture. This is really the most impactful part. It's really simple. I just put in a principled volume node. Basically, it's just this big cube that I put over my entire scene, and I just added a principled volume node and a multiply node just to make the density more responsive. And then I just put in this value to control the density. It's like 0.002. It depends on your scene, but then that creates this smoke. Like, the most impactful part of this is probably the volume. Like, if you look at this before the volume, the render looks like this, which is not really that impressive, and it doesn't really look too professional. But then if you add on the volume, it just makes it so much better, because it creates this nice result with the background where it kind of like blurs it and makes it just look more realistic. But yeah, that's how I created this spooky forest render in Blender of this other texture from BlenderKit, which is like moss and